It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guest and I each pick a film related in some shape or form. And this week, Mike wanted to get sad. So we're going to be talking about the Holocaust. But thank you so much for that, Mike.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So yes, joining me is Mike Hilty, our fearless leader here at the SPDM Crew, and he chose Schindler's List, which
Sure
I
did.
then picked. At least I picked one that was half a rom-com, and that is Life is Beautiful.
That is fair. So I'm glad for that. Yeah. So quick story about this. I was recording with a couple of our Sif Pop friends, so Heath, Nick, and our buddy Rowan. He popped in for like a cup of coffee for one of our podcasts, and one thing that he had mentioned, or that Heath had mentioned on the episode before, was Rowan decided to watch Schindler's List just kind of out of nowhere, and we were like, that is not a movie that you'd kind of just pick out of nowhere to watch unless you're either in a certain mood, you feel like you need to be, you need to learn an important lesson, or you just need, you're in the middle of a Steven Spielberg watch party. So
Yep.
That's where this came from. And truth be told, I don't think I've actually ever seen this movie in one sitting. I've always had to break it up into multiple sittings, or there's always been an intermission back in the day when the VHS tapes, where you had to, put the VHS tape in, and even the original DVD. There was, hey, flip this over. Like, why? What is this? I got a Blu-ray player, or I got a DVD, so I wouldn't have to do this. But whatever, it's all good.
So I have a story here too, which is actually related to that. But actually, my first time watching this, so they required every high school senior in my high school to watch Schindler's List
Seriously?
for world history.
Okay.
And my brother was sick a lot in school. So
Okay.
he had homework when he was out, was he had to watch Schindler's List at home. And my mom's like, come and watch it with us. So I watched Schindler's List when I was a junior in high school, and then had to watch it again my senior year for actual school, sitting in school for 3 hours and 15 minutes watching Schindler's List. And I had not watched Schindler's List again until I did my Spielberg series for Welcome to the Wasteland. And I do own one of the original DVDs that is 2 discs. And I watched the first disc one evening, and then the very next morning at like 5 o'clock in the morning, fed the cats, popped in the second disc, and sat there tearing up
Yep.
before work with my one cat on my lap, purring and staring at me as I'm like crying.
Yeah, yeah, that'll do,
And
right?
let's start from there. So, I know the moment that got me is at the very end of the film, where Liam Neeson gives a fantastic performance in this film as Oscar Schindler, who is breaking down, realizing how many more Jewish people he could have saved. And
Yep.
he's looking at his car, and he's looking at his ring, and he's just falling. Just, I've never seen Liam Neeson like this before.
Nope.
And he's just breaking down, and all these Jewish people come up to him and are hugging him, and I'm losing it. And I'm just like, this movie, there's a lot of emotions watching this film. And obviously, this is a depiction of one of the worst genocides, potentially the worst genocide in the history of humanity.
Hmm.
And, you know, it is also good watching a movie where the Nazis are the bad guys still.
I know, right? It's
Just putting
weird.
that out there in 2025.
We
But
uh
no,
we need
um,
to just remember that casually, which is a bit of a bummer. Just like, hey, you guys, the South lost the war, so quit acting like it's, you know, they lost. Slavery is bad. That's We just watched Night at the Museum. That was the thing that Ben Stiller said. And my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, was like, huh, okay, that's a good point. Like, yep, that's right.
Yes, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia probably lasts 3 times as long as the Confederacy. Um, but we have here the performance that Liam Neeson gives, especially in that scene, is incredible. And then that moment at the very end of the scene where you have all those surviving Schindler Jewish people who survived and their families bringing those stones up to his tomb. It's just like where it
That,
cuts the reality of the film and just delivers something like that. It's just like, damn you, Steven Spielberg.
yeah, that's, oh, that, yes, both of those moments hurt a lot to watch. But it's also just a testament to just everything before that just being so awful to watch. Like Ray Fiennes is just chilling in this. Ugh.
Valk is one of the worst villains in the history of cinema. And yes, Ray Fiennes gives an incredible performance, which I would like to point out he did not win an Oscar, unlike some of the Oscar voters thought he did. So they didn't give him an Oscar, but then gave it to Adrian Brody, who had indeed won an Oscar. But whatever. But Ray Fiennes was absolutely incredible, despicable,
Mm,
and also complex and
yeah.
strange. And there's like layers to this, and that relationship that he has with that young woman, that the maid, and it's so disgusting and so dirty, and it makes you feel so many uncomfortable feelings, but he was so cold.
Mm,
And like that one moment where that young woman who's an architect calls out his men for doing something wrong, they shoot her, and then he says, "Do what she said."
yeah.
Is just, oh my god, evil, evil. And I don't want to wish violence upon people, but
Mm.
I was not like, it was kind of cathartic watching him getting hanged at the end of the movie. So when you have a character that evil, it does, hit a spot watching them suffer a little bit,
And
but
look,
not enough.
and Steven Spielberg. So up until this point, he's predominantly known for blockbusters, but he's had a handful of movies that are like, okay, these are kind of heavier topics. So
Yep.
The Color Purple comes to
Yes.
mind, even Empire of the Sun to some extent or another.
Yes.
But I don't think Spielberg has, like, this is hands down his best movie. It's not my favorite movie of his, but this is a type of movie that I didn't think Spielberg had in him because he didn't strike me as someone who wants to be an artist or wants to see some or wants to show something that has like a real message or a real impact out there. He makes fantastic movies, but I don't look at movies like Hook and be like, "Huh, this really thinks about my fucking childhood." No, I don't. I'm sorry. I was entertained, but this is one where you just leave with so many complex thoughts and so many different things that you're like, I can't believe I'm seeing these images portrayed in this way because I'm not sure. Like, I'm sure this isn't the first movie that has depicted the Holocaust in such, or like at least the treatment of Jewish individuals during the Holocaust in such vivid detail. But I'm sure this is the one that at least put it out there and be like, yep,
Mhm.
this is some serious stuff, people.
Well, and what I find so powerful about this film that I feel like maybe The Color Purple was missing a bit of is this is his, like, this is the story of his people.
Mhm.
And like, Steven Spielberg is an auteur. He's an incredible filmmaker. He is able to connect with the people. And
Mhm.
that's something that's so incredible about him as an artist. But speaking for a young black woman,
Yeah.
speaking for Black women in that context, like he made a really good movie.
Yeah.
But there's a deep soul to Schindler's List. And there's certain things that you can only express through experience or your
This is
culture.
part of your experience. Yeah.
And this is something that's so powerful because yes, he made Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Last Crusade, and even this. It's time to make the obligatory. He made this in the same year as Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park are all incredible films. Jurassic Park the same year is a damn near perfect film,
Yeah.
but there's something on a whole other different level of maturity and emotion that this film does that none of his films have ever done. And you have such a mix of things. You have that John Williams score with that
Hmm.
violin that will make you weep just by listening to that. And it's just so beautiful. And this film shot completely in black and white,
Except for
except
what
for
one
that
thing,
one red coat.
which when you first see that scene is like that's a weird choice, and then once you kind of get, or like whether you read up a little, or if you don't get what he's trying to say, or if you read up on it, it's like, oh yeah, that was beautifully
Well,
done.
and when we see that little red coat again, it's not
Gut wrenching.
it's
Gut wrenching.
it's wretching. The moment where it's Zach Stern, who also Ben Kingsley gives an incredible,
Outstanding in this.
moving, and strong performance. Because this is a quiet man. This is an intelligent man. This is a caring man. And he is strong in the face of so many things. But when he gets put on that train and Oscar Schindler gets him off of the train because he threatens to send the two Nazi soldiers to the Russian front, because he has power and influence. We'll get Oscar Schindler as a character in a bit, but the reason I bring up this scene is because what we see when they are leaving the train station,
Hmm.
that long take of the pile of shoes, the pile of jewelry, and it's just harrowing
Yeah.
to watch that happen. And they don't need to show anything happen to these Jewish people. You just know their lives have been stolen, their belongings have been stolen, their identity, their humanity.
Hmm.
And then we see them stripped down naked. And this has so much nudity in it, but in the most just unnerving and uncomfortable of ways, because everything is stripped away from them. And there are sequences in this film that are just so harrowing to watch. And you have the moment with that old man with one arm where, like, and that's one of the moments where Oscar Schindler is like, you realize from the beginning, like, this was very selfish of him
Oh
initially
yeah, of course.
before he grows and before he allows himself to really see what he can really do with this. But like that whole thing with that man in the shovel
Mm.
and them just shooting him, that's a challenging thing. There's fleeting moments of humanity that we get to see, like the little boy saving the little girl, and stuff like that. But so much of it's just the worst desolation of
Mhm.
people that
Yeah.
you're ever going to see on screen.
So like one thing that always has, ever since I first saw it, one thing that always stood out to me, and it's a scene where a little boy hides in like a porta potty
Yep.
where he's trying to avoid being caught, and if this is
Mhm.
the safest place that he could go, then so be it. And to think that there's individuals out there who had to do that is just breaks my heart to no extent or another. And but not only that, it's important for individuals to see a movie like this, because this is not a movie that, I gave we gave Rowan a little bit of shit for it, but this isn't a movie that you just pick up off the shelf and you just put on. And I can't even do this like on an annual basis to watch this as like, hey, this is an important movie to watch. And I'm dreading slash looking forward to the day that I can like show my kids this and like just have a discussion with them about the impact that something like this has. Um, because apparently our society is just filled with so many people who are like, it's fake. This didn't happen. And it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit that we live in a world where there's so many people out there who just feel like this did not happen and it's all fake and fabricated, even though there is a mountain of evidence out there that suggests that this did happen.
Well, unfortunately, it reinforces the kind of world that we live in where things that are literally right in front of our face don't need to be believed because other people give credence to just ignoring actuality and reality of things.
Yeah,
And if you're a Holocaust denier, you're a piece of shit.
straight
Just
up.
putting that out there.
Yeah.
But two films that I want to bring up. One, my favorite podcast is the Cinephiles. Love John Roca and love Steve Morris and their discussions. And I remember I was so excited they were doing Inglorious Bastards because that's my favorite Quentin Tarantino film. And then Steve Morris, who is a Jewish man, talked about how it's really hard for him to connect with Inglorious Bastards because it is not Jewish to seek revenge.
Yeah.
And who made it? Quentin Tarantino, who's
Mhm.
like,
That is
of
his
course
MO.
Jewish, of course Jewish people would want to seek revenge on Hitler,
Like,
but he doesn't
okay.
understand Jewish people.
Yeah.
He's not Jewish. And that was eye-opening for me. It's about survival.
Hmm.
They it wasn't something where like the Jewish people were trying to break out and seek revenge against Hitler. It was to show them this evil that they can survive and
Hmm.
persevere. And that is what Jewish people have done for thousands of years.
Hmm.
Because literally thousands of years.
Yep.
Jewish people are one of the oldest cultural
Persecuted. Yeah.
groups of people on this planet.
Hmm.
And that was something that really spoke to me, like hearing that discussion and made me like I still love Inglourious Bastards, but like in a fantastical context, obviously, because it's not even reflective of the culture of the people. But what's interesting is Inglorious Bastards in that opening scene because when Hans Landa is like, Germans cannot conceive where Jewish people will hide because a German would not hide there.
Hmm.
And going to your point of that young boy hiding in literal shit
Yep.
is because they will do what they have to do to survive. And they're strong enough to persevere through the filth of it all. And it says something very interesting about somebody who cannot even conceive that somebody is strong enough willed to go through that. And that's what this film is about. Because, like, this film is not just like torture porn, it's not just depression porn, trauma porn. It's hopeful. There is hope at the end of this. And at the end of the day, Oscar Schindler, who was, let's be frank, he was a bit of a sleut.
A little bit.
Male
And
whoring around over here.
and
With his poor wife at home.
can't deny the fact that he's also a Nazi as well.
Yes.
But
He
but
he is a member of the Nazi party because he is a businessman and he's a war profiteer. Like, I don't think for a second that Oscar Schindler actually believes in the message of the Nazis. He
it's
believes in the
just
message
good
of
for
money.
it's good for business. Yep.
Yes. And that's at the beginning, all of these Jews, it is good for business. and that's Oscar Schindler. And it's his relationship with Stern throughout this film that slowly helps him realize this is not how you should be living life.
Yeah.
And this is like, not only is it the quintessential Holocaust film, it is the quintessential film of a capitalist finding humanity. It's just such an interesting context to see that kind of film play out. And Liam Neeson is incredible. Ray Fiennes is incredible. Ben Kingsley is incredible. This cast just nails it.
Mhm.
And this film is sprawling. It is epic in length. It's a 3 hour and 15-minute movie.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of depressing things to watch in this, but there's also hope. And I
Mhm.
think that's what makes this so powerful and what makes this such a Spielberg film.
Mhm.
Because if this was not Spielberg, it would not have the hope in it. I don't
No,
think.
no, it definitely wouldn't. There is a sense of timelessness with this because I was reading about how the cinematographer wanted to create a sense of timelessness
Mhm.
with it, and I think that is important um, because unless we showcase different things like this, um, we're doomed to repeat history, and it's just important that it's not just about Jewish persecution. It's just about just there is a very human story with this about individuals who can just be a light in the darkest of times. Um, and whether or not it was for selfish reasons beforehand, but then kind of grows to evolve at some point, um, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. A light is a light when you need it the most.
This, and I'm going to read the lyrics to a song real quick.
Okay.
I promise this is relevant.
Okay.
So they have a frightening desire for genocide. They wouldn't stop till what was left of my family died. Hell bent on taking over the world. You couldn't hide in the shroud of conformity. We can't forget how were devastated by the beast, and now we plead the captures for release. We are hunted for no reason at all, one of the darkest times in our history. All that I have left inside is a soul that's filled with pride. I tell you, never again. In a brave society didn't end up killing me. Scream with me, never again. And a generation that was persecuted endlessly, exterminated by the Nazi war machine. We will remember, let the story be told to realize how we lost our humanity. You dare to tell me that there was never a Holocaust? You think that history will leave the memory lost? Another Hitler using fear to control. You're going to fail this time for the world to see. And this is Never Again by Disturbed, because David Draymond, a Jewish man, takes that very seriously.
Mhm.
And it's very sad in a world where people are casually accepting fascist leaders again,
Mhm.
because not enough people who went through this are alive.
Yep.
And when you don't teach history as you should, it repeats itself.
Mhm.
And I think this is an extremely relevant film to think about, because the Holocaust did not start by all Jewish people getting sent to concentration camps.
Oh no, it is a gradual process that happened over the course of what 10, 15 years prior because it all starts with stoking the flames of anger and then
Scapegoating.
and then capitalizing on that and finding some way to remove them from the equation whether it's separate them which is you know yeah it's sad. It really is.
But this film is so important. And especially too, even the level of, there's a lot of hate in the world today, and there's a lot of anti-Semitism
Mhm.
that's floating around too. And you know, this is the kind of film that it's like, this is a group of people that have been persecuted through generations and generations. And I know it's a challenging topic in terms of talking about Israel and Gaza, But there is a difference between talking about the government and military of Israel and Jewish people around the world.
Well,
And
it's what you said before. It's humanity. If you take the humanity equation first and you remove a lot of the stuff like institutions that tend to capitalize on the hate, the angst, the anger that individuals have towards one another, um, you see a little bit more clearly just kind of where so many other people are coming from with this. And it is a sensitive topic right now because, you know, um, it's not as just black and white as like, hey, I'm pro-Palestinian, which automatically makes me anti-Semitic. Like, well,
you could be supportive of the Palestinian people who are going through horrible things and also not hate Jewish people blanketly because of it.
yeah, it is not one versus the other like it's often portrayed. There is a level of nuance to the conversation which has just been missing for perhaps you could
Yeah.
say has been missing since it's probably always been missing if we're being perfectly honest, but unfortunately the internet has just stoked that so much more because people could say whatever
Welcome
the
to
hell
the
they want.
internets.
People could say whatever the hell they want on the internet, not have a face, not face any consequences, and
Mhm.
then that's that. And yeah.
Well, Mike, are you ready to talk about Life is Beautiful?
Oh, yeah, yeah, because we're going from a story that is a little bit grander in scope to a story that is much more individually focused. And
It is intimate, it is personal.
yeah.
And when an open minded Jewish waiter and his son become victims of the Holocaust, he uses a perfect mixture of will, humor, and imagination to protect his son from the dangers around this camp. I would like to point out that's the second half of the movie.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that is yeah, very much so. The first half, the first half is beautiful. It is a beautiful love story that it does such a good job of building all of this tension with just little things here and there to showcase, oh, this is the world that we're living, kind of what we were talking about before, where the the final solution to the Holocaust did not just come out of a vacuum. It just gradually built up over time. And that is
popping up
one
little flags
um
and rallies
and
and
like you see an increase in soldiers, you see, you know, it starts off with like a house that's broken into, and then it gets to like a horse being vandalized, and then a shop being vandalized, and then all of a sudden it just kind of spirals out of control from there. So, really quick, the first time I saw this movie was in high school. I was in a film and lit class, and the topic for the film and lit class, because we watched this and we read the book Night by Eli Wiesel, which highly recommend that. That's a fantastic book. Um, and the topic that we talk, because before that we had talked about the hero's journey. So we watched Star Wars and we watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. We watched The Godfather, and then we watched this, and I was like, "What on earth are we talking about with this?" Um, and Mr. G, who was our film and lit teacher, said, "We're going to talk about the meaning of life according to somebody who's been through the Holocaust." Like, okay, we're getting into some heavy shit, and I know for me, watching this the first time in high school, you don't really get a lot of the context that's behind it because you're in high school, you're young and dumb, and you
Mhm.
don't know. But once you've experienced the world in different ways and you see how humanity has evolved, boy, this movie hits home so much harder, and it hits home for me so much harder now that I'm a parent as well. Because look, it's no secret that it is using the Holocaust in some comedic ways, which not it's a bold move. Let's just
Mhm.
put it that way. It's a bold move. Um, Mel Brooks has historically said like he hates this movie because he does not thinks that it was very distasteful because he satirizes Nazis all the time, but he would never do anything concentration camp related because it's a very personal story for him. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's understandable. But Roberto Benigni does an amazing job as just like the Swiss Army knife that does everything for this movie. He's the director, he's the main star. Um, he brings that heart, and again, this is a story about humanity at the end of the
Mhm.
day and what somebody is willing to do in order to showcase or in order to protect someone that they care about.
This is a challenging film
Mhm.
because this was certainly was a bolt by Roberto Benigni, who directed this, starred in this, co-wrote this with Vincenzo Cerami. And the first half of this movie I've loved each time that I've watched it because it is such a whimsical, fun, fairy tale-esque romantic comedy.
Mhm.
And Guido, Benini, he's just a fun guy.
Yeah.
And like he's just trying to woo this woman, Dora, played by Nicoletta Brachki. And their dynamic, I love it. She's charmed by him. He is silly, he's goofy, he's fun. And you see the little sprinklings of what's to come in the background and those kinds of things. And it's there. It's present.
Mhm.
But the focus of this is just love is beautiful.
Mhm.
Life is beautiful. And why we like it does a great job of setting up what we fight for.
Mhm.
And that wonderful transition when they finally are together and walk into this place and then boom, they have a child.
They've got a child, they've got a happy life, they're still together, but it's also where you notice just the
Mhm.
changes around because they take that same bike ride that they take at the beginning, like towards the beginning of the movie, and things are different. There's
Yep.
the statues are, shielded because they don't want any of them to be, to be torn down or to be bombed. Um, there's tons more soldiers around. There's less people around. Um, this film does a really good job of showing you things in the background
Mhm.
that you don't think matter at the end of the day, but they absolutely matter. But you don't see it because you're in your own little world sometimes. And this movie gets real in a hurry.
Yeah.
When when the uncle Guido and their son Joshua they get taken.
Mhm.
I recently picked this to watch for the BTB movie club as well. We watched it last week, so I watched this and I completely forgot Dora gets on the train willingly herself.
That was heartbreaking because they got taken and she's like, "Take me." And I love her
Oh, she's
as a character. And the first time I watched this this did not work for me. Like
Mhm.
the whole second half of the movie, I'm just like, this is not working for me. It worked a lot more for me this time, but she's one of the things that I really honed in on
Yeah.
of the defiance, the strength in her walking in there and ordering them
But
is so powerful. And that actress is incredible, and I loved her in this film.
mhm. She's great. Her and Roberto Benigni, they were either together or they still are together, but the chemistry was definitely there. Boy, that kid is cute as well. And you could not have picked a kid that like you don't want this to happen to. Like obviously you don't want this to happen to any kid, but that kid is super cute. And it's just little things again that just pay off. So just like background stuff that pays off
Mhm.
in order to get us to the point where they're put in this concentration camp. But even something as small as Joshua, like before they're taken, doesn't want to take a shower. But
Mhm.
then when he's at the camp and he's hiding out, they're like, he's like, no, I don't, like, I was told like all the kids are being taken for a shower and I don't want to take a shower. And even Guido is like, no, 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 go take a shower with the kids. And that is a scene that I'm like, shut up, man. Just shut up. You don't know what you're doing. And that's the thing about this movie is that there's there's beauty in life, even though you're in the absolute darkest point where somebody could be in right now. And even just, and that is where like just any little thing can happen that can change the whole thing. So, for example, like the scene where Joshua says thank you in Italian at that dinner scene, even though he was told not to talk, but he was just raised to be polite as well. And then you just think, how is Guido going to get just, he's such a fast talker. He's so smooth. How is he going to get out of these situations? And that was one where it's like, you're just on the edge of your seat and you're just hoping that
Mhm.
he figures it out.
Which that scene was fantastic. And like they come back to take him and the child, and it's like grazie, 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 and it has like all the little kids doing it. It's just like
Yeah, that's good.
you did
That's
it.
good. Yeah.
Um, I think it's so important that through all of this, you can feel some of the life zapping from Guido.
Mm,
Like when he's working and he's being put to work. But when he's with his son, he is always on because
mhm.
he needs to be.
Yeah.
And he's desperately trying to protect his son from this harsh reality. Because even if his son makes it through, the trauma
Mhm.
that could come with this, that one shot where they're like walking out into that fog
Oh, yeah.
and what you see messed me up.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did not remember that
Yeah.
from the first time I watched this movie. I'm like, huh, it just hit. And then it did get me emotionally when, he's all dressed up in drag,
Yeah.
trying to hide, and his son's in was like a trash can or something like
Something
that.
like that. Yeah.
And he just winks at him one last time. And you're like, ah,
Yeah. I,
and then you see him walking away because like it didn't the first time I watched this movie, it didn't sink in with me like he was dead.
yeah.
Because to me, the tone did not match.
Yeah.
This time around, that scene had a whole other level of emotion to it. And
Mhm.
then it was just like the second he winks at him, it's over.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But there's always a small part of you that thinks he's going to get out of this, right? But
Mhm.
because also, yeah, just you're so close to the end as well. And
Mhm.
you're just hoping upon all hope that he makes it out of it. But also, but that's when the end kind of hits home more because you find out the narrator is Joshua and he talks about, at the beginning it's a simple story, but then he's talking about his father's sacrifice and what that what that meant to him. And you know to look back at that situation and then to like realize like what was actually going on during that, because there are some genuinely funny moments in the concentration camp. So for example, the scene where Guido is like translating the German and he's giving the instructions to his son, and all these people are like, what is he talking about? Is really funny. Even though you know the context, like it still doesn't change the fact that it's funny. But then
Mhm.
also the scene where Joshua confronts him and is like, they make buttons out of us and they burn us. And Guido is like, I've heard of a bread oven, I've heard of a wood oven, I've never heard of a people oven. And it's like, oh, I'm wearing blah 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 on my shirt now. It's like, oh, just and as a parent, that does resonate with you a lot more, because the things that you have to tell your kids in order just to get them through the day to day sometimes is hard. And living in this time right now is hard to have to explain to a kid. It was hard during COVID. It's hard now. And throw like just this movie hits so much harder for me now that I'm a parent now. And I'm glad I watched it again. This is definitely up there for me with one of my favorite movies out there. And even if even if you don't find Roberto Benigni charming and you think he talks too fast, and or you're turned off by how he reacted at the Oscars, which you realize, oh, this is just who he is. He's, fast talking and kind of crazy, but also very bright and vibrant, and just and all around just feels like a very lovely person. Um, but it's this is one of those movies that if you just allow it, it will stick with you. If you could see past uh, the initial shock of the comedy and kind of dive into what it's actually trying to say and what it's trying to do.
This one definitely grew on me the second time watching this, because this was the second time I watched this.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I rewatched it. It's tough watching this back-to-back nights with Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but that's what we do here. We pair movies. So,
Yeah.
but I would like to report a nice little fun fact.
Okay.
Roberto and Nicoletta have been married since December 1991.
Oh.
Their marriage is old as I am.
That's nice.
That is nice. Huh. Well, this was a heavy one.
A little
But
bit.
next month, Mike and I are going to be talking about The Big Lebowski and Raising Arizona.
Okay, some context about that. So I picked The Big Lebowski.
Because he hates it.
I don't hate it. Well, actually, fine. Yeah, I kind of do. And the reason why is because I don't think I was in the proper headspace, that didn't understand what it was trying to do for me. So I'm giving it another chance. Shane loves this movie, so I
Be
got to get
prepared.
back on his
I'm going
good
to quote
graces.
this a lot.
That's fine. I get that. I get it. It's all good.
Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the rules? Um, we'll get to that next time. And next week, we're going to get a little Dutch on here as Luke and I talk about The Vanishing and Turkish Delight. Turkish Delight happens to be a Rutger Hauer starring Paul Verhoeven directed film. So it's going to be wild.
Mm.
And The Vanishing's pretty messed up. I just watched them this weekend. But Mike, thank you so much as always for coming on and being a wonderful guest each and every month for the Wasteland Retrospective.
Shane, always happy to collaborate. Thanks for getting a little bit on the heavier side with me. Appreciate it, and thanks for leaning into the theme. Boy, we picked two rough ones, but they're important ones to watch.
I was not going to watch The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. It was not going to happen.
Oh God, that
was not going to happen.
That's one where I've seen once, and just that part, just the ending, just devastated me. I was like, I cannot believe that.
Not today.
Yeah.
But thank all of you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What is your go-to Holocaust film when you're feeling in the mood for a Holocaust film? Yeah. And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPDM Crew podcasting network is ever expanding. And if you want to join in, make sure to reach out to us at our website if you want to start your own show or join one of ours as a guest. And there are plenty of shows to dive into, to the point where I'm struggling to even keep up with all of them. But, we're doing our best. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.